This is World of Info. We're coming from Studio 3. My name is Dr. Amr Mabrouk. Dua Muhammad is at the control. And we are here with you for 1 hour. And today we have really a great honor. And really I'm very proud to have today amid of all his responsibilities and his involvement in everyday work here in Cairo, His Eminence and his Archbishop Nicolas Thevenin, the Apostolic Nuncio, or السفير البابوي بالقاهرة, or the Ambassador of the Holy See in Cairo, representing Pope Leo here in Cairo, His Excellency Nicolas Thevenin. Really, thank you very much for having the time to come to our program, and really, it's a great honor, sir. Thank you.
The honor is mine. Thank you very much, Doctor.
It's a great career that you had before going to become a monk, sir, and a priest. You were enjoying some good education, and you have a degree in business administration, an MBA. And at that time also, in spite of the fact that your father and your grandfather were doctors, you decided to get away a bit towards field of business. But in 1989, there was a decision that you have taken willfully to join the monasterial hierarchy, and you became a priest. And you served in the Foreign Service after having a PhD in canon law in 1994, working in the Foreign Service of the Vatican in India, Zaire, Belgium, Lebanon, Cuba, Bulgaria, and working for 7 years in Rome with very distinguished posts, and then 7 years as ambassador in Guatemala, and 6.5 years in Cairo.
Exactly.
Sir, it's a very beautiful career and a very busy career that you have had, and you have gone around the world. Did you expect to have all this since on the decision of 1989?
Actually, no.
To go to the Foreign Service of the Vatican?
I will tell you one thing. When I made my civil service I'm French of origin, and I was sent to Sri Lanka at the French Trade Commission, French Embassy, and I finished the service. I was actually like a para-diplomat, I would say. And at the end, I said, I will never enter to the diplomacy.
Really?
That was my decision. And afterwards, I entered the seminary and became a priest after 6 years of training in 1989. So, I mean, the thing that the providence of God is this.
You were a priest in one of the churches, of the Catholic churches in France?
Actually, after the ordination as a priest, I was sent to Rome to study further. And I had a licentiate and afterwards a PhD in canon law. And while in Rome, I was asked to enter the diplomatic service of the Holy See.
And these are usually demands that has to be obeyed, because this is part of your promise to God, right? More or less.
This kind of you don't make a career decide to enter the diplomatic service of the Holy See, because what you must feel first to be a priest.
Yes.
And then if the superior decide, they will ask first of all your bishop, and then if he agrees, they will ask you. So in case you would say, no, I don't feel like traveling abroad or whatever, you can say it. But I accepted because I knew what that kind of life was. And also because it was a service.
It's a service.
It's a service.
Definitely. Because really, a lot of people are not familiar with history. When they hear the word Vatican, they think that it's just a small city in Rome. Vatican City is the world's smallest independent sovereign state, located as an enclave within Rome. It was established in 1929 via the Lateran Treaty. It serves as the spiritual and administrative center of the Roman Catholic Church, led by the Pope. The importance of this state does not start from this year, but its glory and importance dates to hundreds of years before, as it is ruled by the Pope and serves as the administrative center of the Catholic Church. The Holy See dates to early Christianity, as early as 100 AD, and is the principal episcopal see of the Catholic Church, which is 2026 had about 1.41 billion baptized Catholics in the world, in the Latin Church and 23 Eastern Catholic Church. This huge responsibility gives the Pope a very important spiritual authority on these millions of people. So this is a huge responsibility. People think that it's ceremonial. Some people think that it is just as the carrier of the real cross, but actually it's a very important spiritual leadership, responsible for directing these people to the good and the face and the real true face. So tell us about the role of the Pope in the lives of Catholics, Your Eminence.
And from the first centuries onwards, I mean, the Pope has been always considered as a spiritual leader, even if for many centuries he was at the same time a temporal leader. You were mentioning, Doctor, that the state of the Vatican has been reconstituted in 1929 with their Treaty of Lateran, but actually there have been for centuries what was called the state of the Church,
yes,
which was abolished and suppressed when the Piemontese invaded Rome in 1870. But even at that time, that lapse of time between 1870 and 1929, the Holy See as such still had diplomatic relations. And we had more than 10 ambassadors residing in Rome, and for this gap of about 50 years. So this means that it's not only a matter of territory, because the territory is only functional. It's precisely the fact that the Pope is representing, beyond the Catholic population in the world, also a moral force, moral strength. And I would say that the Pope is representing, what is the natural order, which of course is an expression, and his mission is not only to take care of the Catholics, to teach them, to remind them the teaching of Christ, but it's also to have a mission of a humanitarian mission, I would say, beyond the welfare of Catholics. It's trying to find out all means possible to bring back peace and to make that people get together. Well, actually, the first diplomacy in the world was, more or less, would say, the Pope's diplomacy. When he was sending some legates, some envoy, to settle problems in certain regions, to put people together, avoid, first of all, that Christian leaders would fight each other, Christian kings. But at the same time, it was, a mission which little by little went further, not only for the Catholic Church, but also for the welfare of the people around, because we cannot live, Lucy, like on an island and just forget about the others.
Of course.
And that's why, the mission goes beyond respecting the others, not a matter of imposing any religious law, but you see that in a specific place, maybe Catholic population may have some problem, but not only them. So you are here to help and suggest. Our diplomacy is characterized by discretion. We don't like to make big declarations or on situation, on peoples and others. We think that it's always talking to men, to people, one by one, in a very discreet way, that we can. And also, there's one thing which is not common in diplomacy. We think also that prayer is very important. You see, and just I like to underline the fact that I'm a diplomat, I'm an ambassador, but first of all, and I think also my colleagues, diplomat, always see me first of all as a priest, as a bishop, and the relationship is different in the sense that we are colleagues, we have the same kind of preoccupations, and we are full of the same things. But we also, when I'm talking with my colleagues, I always have the impression, and it's true, that we can talk about many other subjects that normally, in a very seldom way, people would just touch, because it's more intimate.
Yes.
And that's something wonderful, because you see, I feel, being a pastor in that sense, whatever the other people may be, other religion, non-Christian, it doesn't matter. But we can speak very deep human subject.
They can easily confide in you, even if they are not Catholics. They are Protestants, or they're Muslims, or they're Jews. They can really trust that whatever that they're going to confide in you, even if it is their own personal suffering,
exactly,
they will find a good listening ear that keeps the secret. which is really a very important part of the Catholic Church and the Catholics believe. And we know, of course, that in the early centuries, the role of the Pope was even sometimes political and had a lot of political impact. But we are talking not much about, we can go on talking in history and the vivid history of the Church for a very long time, but we mentioned the 20th century and the 21st, of course, after that, which has carried a lot of turmoil. It is very well known that in spite of the Napoleonic Wars that ended in 1815, the 19th century has seen more or less less wars, and even the wars were short-lived. Even when the Prussians invaded France and Paris, these were short-lived wars with less casualties than what happened in World War I and World War II. And at the helm of papal throne at that time, there were two popes who faced the tragedies of the First World War I, and I'm speaking about Benedict XV and Pius the 12th in World War II, who has been a part of this war, and the fascist regime was in Rome. I mean, I read part of the book which was saying Mussolini and the Pope, how he was just walking on very thin ice in these relations, trying in both wars. They have declared, the two popes, their neutrality of the Vatican or neutrality of the Holy See, and they insisted in all the messages that have been sent in the 4 years of World War I and the 6 years of World War II, the peace message and the trial to bridge and the trial to save lives. The Church was there trying to save a lot of people from atrocities, and nobody was able to incriminate the Church in saying that it has failed its role. They have tried very hard to deliver aid to the victims of the conflicts, although it seemed like an impossible mission, but it has strengthened the role of Catholic Church as a peace advocate. Please elaborate on these two historical characters and the nature of the century that they lived in.
Doctor, you underlined something very important. These two figures, Benedict XV and Pope Pius XII, were actually linked between them because Pope Pius XII worked together with Pope Benedict, and he was a young diplomat at that time, and both of them were moved only by this idea of avoiding war, first of all, both of them. And there is a very famous speech of Pope Benedict XV of the 1st of August 1917, when he was saying these words exactly: "Nothing is lost with peace. Everything can be lost with war, and man may start again understanding each other." That was the main indication of Pope Benedict XV in 1917. And it's really interesting to know at that time, both sides criticized him. He was very badly called by the French, by the Italians, and also by the German. There's only one sovereign at that time who adopted and shared the position of Pope Benedict. Was Blessed Emperor Charles of Austria. So they both were on the same line, and fortunately both the initiative of Pope Benedict XV and Emperor Charles of Austria failed because some people had interest that the war would go on.
Yes, and Charles was, he came after the long reign of Franz Joseph
exactly,
in 1912, and he was trying to fix or to do a mission impossible. Saving the empire of the Austro-Hungarian Empire with the weak forces that he was having, with the division that is between the different people of the Austro-Hungarian, and the death of the Archduke before that. All this was
it was a difficult
mission
task,
impossible.
But at the same time, you see, you have to say that Blessed Emperor Charles was moved by faith. That's why afterwards Pope John Paul II decided to make him canonized. For the moment is blessed. And that's interesting. But anyway, what is good to see, you have people of goodwill at each time of the world, at each moment in history. And Pope Pius XII was also trained in that school of trying to avoid wars. He was the Secretary of State of Pope Pius XI, and he knew very well what it was. Pope Pius XI had seen, when he was in Warsaw as a nuncio, as an ambassador of the Holy See, in the 20s, the impact of communism. So he was very much shocked about it. And Pope Pius XII saw also when he was a nuncio in Bavaria first and then in Berlin, the violence of revolutions and things like this. And they both, were very clearly, especially with the encyclical, the lecture of Pope Pius XI, both of them, once against fascism, once against Nazism, and the third one against communism. Most of these letters had been prepared by Pope Pius XII, who was his Secretary of State, his Prime Minister, let's say. So it's quite interesting. And this, having seen from very close all the problems, Pope Pius XII was a person who really said we have to avoid war. And that's exactly what he said in a speech of the 24th of August 1939, that he said everything can be lost with war. And
this was just 9 weeks,
9
days before the Polonian invasion.
Pope Benedict XV in 17 said it's a useless massacre which is going on. So both of them were impressed by this awful things which are going to take place.
And I believe that Pius the 12th was really like a hostage in Vatican with all
at the same
this,
time he had a great freedom.
Yes,
because see, when he never left Rome, even when the Nazis arrived.
Yes,
and you know,
especially in 1943, this marks a very important.
It's quite interesting to see how Pope Pius XII was a great pope. He has never been criticized until 1963.
Yes,
and it's quite interesting to see the evolution. And now the presenting of the popes of Hitler's popes or whatever, it's quite ridiculous because
nobody was in his foot. Nobody was in his shoes.
And moreover, you see, the important thing is that Pope Pius XII did a lot. But as I was saying before, you can't speak. The more you speak, for example, the
more you become vulnerable.
And not only vulnerable, but you can harm the people who are far away, who are on the spot.
Who are you trying to defend, actually.
That's why, you see, when the bishops in the Netherlands spoke, that the country in which more Jews have been, in proportion, more Jews have been killed. So each time the Pope say, shall I speak? And he spoke again. But the more we speak, the higher the risk. And it's interesting to see that in the archives, you see some kind of things, but not everything is written. When you have to act quickly. You have to pay some people to protect other people. So these kind of things are not registered. You have orders also sometimes, and we have many archives indicating that Pius XII several times wanted to say something, and the Pope's ambassadors, even local bishops, would say, please don't tell anything, because it will be even harsher for our people. And not only for Catholics, for everybody.
Yeah.
So it's a matter of balance, and in front of awful powers, of people who don't care about human life, our mission is to try to save lives. That's why you are underlining this point. It's exactly what is important. And I personally experienced this in my mission when I was in Congo, Zaire, Congo, when you have people who are being persecuted and you have to do something. You don't have to speak out. You have to be active. And many things you see that Pope Pius XII did and sent money, he gave also much of gold which was in our safe in order to save people. So that's very important to see that even when he died in October 58, he was unanimously approved and lauded for what he did. And especially, just to say one thing, even at that time, Israeli Prime Minister Golda Meir said that he praised what he did to save the life of Jews. And only 5 years later, you had this polemics which started from a German theater, which was the man was a former member of the Nazis who became like an indicator of the communists. And it was in the framework of the fighting between the Cold War that they started the polemics. But it's interesting to know, the same year of this playwright, that the present nunciature, with the house of the ambassador of the Pope in Rome, in Italy, this house has been given by a Jew, an Italian Jew. In his memories, in his testament, holograph testament, he mentioned, I give this house to the church to be the embassy of the Holy See in Italy, to thank what the Pope did for us during the war. And even you see there are many things which are the truth. And I remember when I was a young priest in Rome studying, I used to make the blessings during the Easter time. And I was in Via Condotti, which is a very famous street in Rome, very famous with all the very fine shops and so on, of which many are owned by Italian Jews. And I remember they were saying, please, Father, enter. We are Jews, but we remember what the Pope did for us.
Really? That's very
So this is something quite recent, even if the polemics are starting again. So that's just to put things, and it's a very delicate mission when you have this responsibility of so many people. And it's proved, and I've seen so many documents also which saying that Pope Pius XII did a lot to prevent people from being killed, and he was trying to put people together before it was too late. And we have to be very careful when we reread history, not to judge with our own criteria.
Yes.
And especially at a time that we have to know that during the Second World War, the Americans knew about the concentration camp, for example, but the public opinion was against any action. So that's all these kind of things which also have to be re-put into context. And I would say that Pope Pius XII was one of the most important leaders in trying to bring back peace and trying to avoid so many loss of human beings.
Definitely, this is very important, because since we've mentioned the names of two great popes, we have to mention the name of Pope John the 23rd, who has really made the Second Vatican Council, which ushered in a radical change in the church ritual and practice. How far these changes? I mean, this, some people when say they hear the word council think that it's something that took 1 week or 2 weeks. They don't know that it for many years.
3 years, actually.
3 years, yes. And it was very concentrated debate, and they came out with a lot of results that definitely helped to clarify the status of the Catholic Church to a lot of points of difference that some of the believers were having, or not like a conflict, but what shall we say, discomfort from certain rituals and certain things. So how far these changes helped in the progress of the Church?
I think, especially after the Second World War and the extension also of the Catholic Church all over the world, and the importance of discovering that the Church was developing in many other continents, not only Europe, it makes also understand that communication were much more important, and so it was necessary to adjourn, to put things in the light of what the evolution of society, but without depending on that. And that, see, it's always the same for us Catholics, is to announce the message of Christ, the gospel, and try to make it concrete for people. It's not something which is in the air, it's something which has to be alive. And therefore, the substance remained the same. And you may say there are some stressing points about in one period or one other, but you can never see a rupture as such. An interpretation of saying, well, the Second Vatican Council was like a fracture in the Church is not the real one. Actually, some people would say Pope John the 23rd was very conservative and traditional in some aspects of his life, of his ceremonies. But he had been a diplomat, and he had been especially in Bulgaria and in Turkey. He was there during the war, and afterwards he went to Paris in a very difficult moment after the liberation of France from the Nazi occupation and all the polemics inside France of collaborators and resistance. So he had to manage a very delicate situation, which he did very well. So he was in touch with so many different civilizations. That's why also he was the one you were reminding that there were 23 Catholic rites from the Oriental churches. So that's also something he was very sensitive to. He knew what about the church and its variety, and he thought it was necessary to make our message more clearer, and also wider. That's why you see contacts with other Oriental churches, non-Catholic, with non-Christians. That was how he began the thing. And that's why he wanted to have this council reunited and gathered. Pius XII actually thought of it, but it was discouraged by many people who said, well, it's too close to the war. And what Pope John the 23rd did is trying to say, let's try to see what can be done, and especially that our message be understood better. And also, I think he realized that after the Second World War, even if it was the Cold War, he wanted to try to have a more unity in the whole world and try to avoid another conflict. And so I think his idea was we have to get into dialogue. We have to talk to each other and see what could be reformed in the sense of not making a rupture, but making a continuity which would be adapted to the times without changing the basis of our faith. And I think that was his importance. The council, as you were just mentioning, started with him, but he died before the end of it.
Yes, I know that.
He died 2.5 years before. So that's what is important to see how this, and it was continued by Pope Paul VI. It's important to see that each time there is a meeting, general meeting of all the bishops in the church, is to settle problem. The specificity of Vatican II Council is that it was not a dogmatic council. So they didn't define any. They sometimes also spoke about former definitions which were reaffirmed. But it was mostly a pastoral council, meaning it's not to define dogmas or to remind things. It's just to see how can we transmit our faith, how can we have an impact in the world beyond our faith,
and how can we make things easier for,
exactly.
for the,
That's
for
what
the
the thing.
worshippers. Yes.
That's why it's a pastoral council. It's not a dogmatic or doctrinal council.
More or less like a reform, yes, of course.
A reform in the way of transmitting.
Yes.
That's what's basically. Then I think we have to distinguish, and I think what's important also, and unfortunately, few people have read all the texts of the council itself and the preparation, and there is a mixture sometimes between what came afterwards. And people say, oh, the council's Vatican II said this, and it's not true. So that's why it's important. That's what the Pope afterwards have been trying to do. Read the thing, and don't try to make a mixture and put your own ideas saying it's a council. That's very important to be in the truth. And that's how it started. I mean, the movement started, and not as a revolution, but as also an indication, which was very important. The church is not only the Pope and the bishops and the priests and the nuns and the religious. It's also the whole people of God. I mean, all the lay people. And it's not, it's, I would say, like a rediscovery. It's not a new thing. The structure remains, but the council insisted on the fact that lay people can become holy, lay people have their role, and they are also building the church together with the others.
Definitely. Of course, we can talk about this critical period and this interesting period very much. But we have to talk further in 2 or 3 distinguished popes, and then we go to Egyptian relations with the Vatican, because this is very important. So just rapidly, but we have to give a mention to Pope John Paul II. What he did, as originally being a Polish priest in the beginning and a Polish Archbishop, he was really a great advocate, and a lot of people consider that the reform and what happened with the collapse of communism and his support to Lech Wałęsa and his support to the Polish uprising have brought the communism to an end. But also we can talk forever about Pope John Paul II in his visits to Egypt, his visits to all over the world, and his message of care and kindness, which I really believe that it is even overshadowed his role in the antagonism of communism or the fall of communism.
I think we have to see Pope John Paul II as a fruit of his time, but also the vision he had and what he transmitted to the whole world was a fruit of his own experience of family. He was born in 1920 in Poland, and just 2 years before, his father was an officer in the Austrian army, and he was named Karol Charles because of Emperor Charles.
Oh, yeah,
that's quite interesting.
Yeah,
and when much later, Emperor Charles died in 1922. Much later, when Empress Zita, who died aged 97 and was processed, there was also a process of beatification. When she came to see Pope John Paul II, he said, "You are my empress."
Oh.
So it means they were also marked, and I think the devotion Pope John Paul II father had for his emperor was not only of a soldier, of an officer towards his emperor. It was because they realized this man was holy and wanted peace. So Pope John Paul II has been marked by the war his father fought. Then afterwards he was in a country which was in turmoil, even in the 20s when he was a small boy. He had an invasion of the Soviets in Poland, and afterwards the Second World War, and afterwards communism. So all this evolution of Poland also made him placed in a very specific situation, which made him understood all these movements coming and going. And he participated. He was one of the youngest bishop in the Council of Vatican II, and he really was somebody who was a pastor, at the same time a good, very strong theologian and mystic. And he never organized any revolution or whatever, but when he was observing and he was part of what was going on, yes, he took an active part. As a pastor, I wouldn't say that we could say Pope John Paul II was a Pole and wanted to act for Poland as such. He had a vision which is, unfortunately, before him, some were considering that communism was forever, atheism was forever, and we had to deal with this. His vision was different because the experience he had, see the 1956 revolution in Poland, and so his experience was different, and he said, no, we have to think of the evolution, and this will have an end, because it cannot go on like this. At the same time, when communism collapsed in 1989, he was one of the few persons to say, we have to be careful, and not to fall in such kind of capitalism without law, in which human person is being abandoned, as it was also in communism.
Yes.
So I think it was one of the few voices who saw with clarity what could happen. And that instead of being a recovery of man in his spiritual freedom and expansion, it could be also another type of humiliation, of slavery for the human being. And I think it was very much a prophet in the sense that he saw what could be coming. And afterward, all the revolution he had, and the fact that obviously he knew and met President Reagan and other people and other leaders. But I wouldn't say he was a political actor. He was, first of all, somebody would say, the populations in this part of Europe has to recover. They have been traumatized. The quality of personal life has gone down. We have to restore the person. Actually, Pope John Paul II is one who insists so much on the fact that the human person is a reflection. I mean, was created as the image and resemblance to God. So he wanted this image to be restored and to have this full expression, especially spiritual expression. And that's, I think, one of the most important things we have to see in the ministry of Pope John Paul II. He started traveling because he wanted the Pope to be present not only for the Catholics, but for all the population. Actually, it was expected everywhere.
And this is really what's very admired. He came and he visited Egypt.
He visited Egypt also because he visited so many places where never a Pope had gone, in order to make feel that we are members of the same word and we have to work together. We don't have to work one against the other. Actually, his mentality was not of vengeance after the downfall of communism. It was, let's build together.
Yes, and
let's find
he never
common,
asked for vengeance, the revenge.
Exactly.
Yes.
And common human values.
Yes.
We have to build on that. Otherwise, we'll be divided and we are going back to war.
This is lovely. But we have to talk, of course, about Pope Francis and the fact that he has chosen to become the name Francis, in Francis Assisi, the gentleman, the saint who was always asking for the value of talk in between civilizations. The gentleman who met Sultan El-Kamel.
Exactly.
And it's nice what was written about that, where they are full of a lot of myths. The myths by the people from Kamel's side who said that Francis Assisi became a Muslim, and the myths from the people with Francis Assisi who said that Kamel became a Christian, while actually the real truth is that two of them spoke very highly beautiful philosophy and theology about the acceptance of the other. And both of them left each other with a good handshake and a good place in the hearts of both of them. And what is known about Sultan Kamel, the great advocate of peace, and his idea of not giving in Jerusalem as much as allowing a lot of, have some nominal authority on Jerusalem in 1228, but not a real military authority. This gives an idea of how Pope Francis the First has chosen the idea of talk in between not only Muslims and Christians or Catholics, but Muslims, or between Christians in different sects of Christianity, the building bridges of peace and trust and confidence between the Egyptian Church, the Egyptian Orthodox, National Orthodox Church, and the Catholic Church. This is a lot of things that he has done in such a short period of papacy. Just maybe in a minute or two we talk about Pope Francis. I mean, we can talk forever, but
yes,
we're running out of time. I really want to have 2 hours talk with you, Your Eminence, not just 1 hour.
Well, I think, you see, this idea of dialogue is very important, and we have to be very clear. Dialogue is not a matter of trying to put together theology and to say, and some Muslim friends, we don't have the same God. I said, I do agree with you. We believe, both of us, in a unique God.
Of course.
But the definition of God we have is different. But beyond that, we can have so many points in common.
There's a lot of things in common.
Exactly. That's what we have to
see. It
see.
all comes from heaven upside.
And that's what I think it has to be stressed. Dialogue with persons. See, we meet, and in Egypt we have a wonderful ground because Egyptians are used to it.
Yes.
Egyptians have been living together, Christian and Muslim. And
the Nicene Convention was Egyptian. Come on, after all.
And the fact that Egypt is
325 was Egyptian,
and it's a welcoming place for so many people. I mean, in the history, especially, let's think of the Holy Family traveling in Egypt. But more beyond that, I think that what's important is to try to talk, because ignorance is the mother of all evil, the mother of all divisions, of all wars, and that's what we can see in Egypt is this culture of mutual understanding. Mutual appreciation, and that has been, I think, enhanced in this last years, and it has to go on. Dialogue is not mixing and making some kind of syncretism, which is not a good thing at all. Dialogue is knowing the others, appreciating the other, discovering that we have so many common values. Actually, when you see in the international field, so often we have the Holy See and Egypt and other Muslim countries, we have so many topics in common.
Of course.
Promotion of life, promotion of family, which is so much attacked in a very materialistic world. And so we have these values. That's something so great that we find each other linked by the recognition of natural order.
We have a lot of common ground to share, sir.
And this is the most important. And to see that ignorance and lack of contact is the mother of all divisions.
Exactly. This was the role of Pope Francis, and unfortunately he passed away after a short ailment. And we have now a Pope Leo the 14th, and the gentleman has shown his colors, if we may use the expression. People thought that he's as an American, but I knew from the very first moment that he has served in Latin America in some
more than in the US.
Yes, and he has seen poverty, he has seen injustice, he has seen how people are suffering in Latin America and in the rest of the world. He's very well informed and very well cultured. So people didn't expect that he would rise to the occasion, while I expected that such a figure that he has decided to serve. I mean, he's coming from Chicago, and everybody would, if he was a guy who wanted rest, he would have settled in Chicago. There is a lot of Catholics living there, and he could have enjoyed living in one of the cathedrals there and become a real important minister or a priest. But he has chosen the difficult way, and this was the best way for him for understanding. So when he talked about peace and about war 2 weeks ago and 3 weeks ago, and some people got very much afraid of the tone. They say, I mean, you shouldn't talk in this, but what do you expect from the Pope but to talk anything but peace?
See, the way Pope Leo XIV is speaking is not of a polemist, is not of a politician. He's speaking with the Bible in his hand and with this conviction that Christ has come here to bring peace and unity among people. And I would say, but it's very important to understand Pope Leo XIV with 3 words. The first, I would say, is unity. Unity, of course, inside the church. Unity means dialogue, means listening to the other. Unity among the human beings, beyond all the differences, historical, sociological, whatever. So, first point is unity. Unity, and try to make everything possible to unite people and not to divide them. Because what is uniting us is much more than what is dividing. That's why is somebody who has been marked by this very consumistic and materialistic society of the Western world. At the same time, he was, deeply involved in Peru, as
Yes.
in so many years, also as a bishop, of the reality of people who are working, people who are living, and who are also having so many difficult problems, especially of poverty, of hunger, and so on. So unity for him is the main word. But unity cannot be separated from another word, which is very important, truth. We have to work in truth. We cannot hide difficulties. We cannot say that it's all right and we can go on like this. Truth means trying sincerely to find out what is common. Unity can be achieved if we really think what is common and what is important to preserve and to promote. And that second aspect is very important, because truth means also, in a human relationship, means justice. And then the third word, which is typical also from the faith, is charity. But you cannot have charity if you don't have justice, because the minimum required to have charity is to have justice. You cannot pretend to be a charitable, good person if you are not just. That's fundamental. So I would say these three words are defining, from what I've been listening and meditating on Pope Leo XIV, his ministry as head of the Catholic Church, and unity, truth, and charity. And in this order, I would say, it doesn't mean that one is more important than the other. But in order to really live in charity, you have to find unity, and you have to do everything to live in truth and to put things in order. Pope Leo XIV is not somebody who I've seen, and even as he was Superior General of the Augustinian Fathers, he has always been a person who was listening. He is listening to the interlocutor. He is listening to what they have to say, and is not talking a lot, sometimes asking questions. But it doesn't mean that he's not acting. But he's acting with prudence, at the same time, as we recently saw, in a very clear voice. All his predecessors, all the popes, always expressed that war is never a solution, and that fighting is not a solution, that we have to build bridges and recognize that we have been created by the same God, and at the same time we have to try to find solution to real problems which are existing. And so whenever he's talking, he's not talking as a politician, as a leader, he's talking as a spiritual leader. And you see, very often it says the role of the Holy See, the role of the Pope is to speak without any fear, not provoking, but asking the true questions. There's one thing, you see, the Church, the Catholic Church, is not political, is not financial power in the world. We have nothing to sell, no products to promote, nothing. And that makes us also, in a certain sense, especially in the international area, international organization, that makes the Catholic Church more free to speak out. And the experience I can have in all these years, that very often at international level, countries which cannot speak out are asking it discreetly, speak. Because if we start speaking, we have retaliation. Mm-hmm. Speak, and afterwards we can support you, but we cannot have the initiative. So very often the Catholic Church is the voice of those who don't have voice. It's the voice of those who are like abandoned, and that's why it goes far beyond the faith, the Catholic faith. It's a matter of a mission that the Pope has got, and Pope Leo is trying to do it the best he can in his very turmoil word to say, remind the essential. And we have to be reminded all the time that we cannot build any durable peace on injustice, on lies, and we have to look for this unity in any aspect of our lives and of our nations. That's why you see I've been here for more than almost 6.5 years in Egypt, and I think the position of Egypt in the world and in the region is very wise. We have to denounce what is not correct, but especially try to build bridges, try to make the people can live in a dignified way, can live without being killed.
And I think that the president, with his communication with both popes, Pope Francis and Pope Leo, both of them have stressed the importance of peace in the Middle East, have stressed the importance of getting just cause done for anyone who is suffering from injustice, covering for peace in the Middle East, peace in Libya, peace in Sudan, peace in Gaza, and peace in the Gulf. All this through the wisdom of both our leaders, the President and Pope Francis, and after him Pope Leo. They are agreeing on the notion of peace. So, sir, we are approaching, unfortunately, the finishing of the program, but we have to talk about the very unique relation between Egypt and the Vatican and the Pope at the Holy See, because we in Egypt have a very strong community of the Egyptian Orthodox Church, and sometimes there were points of difference between both churches. In the late 60s, the Catholic Church has approached the Egyptian Orthodox Church, and starting of a lot of peaceful relation between Cyril II, Pope Cyril II, and after the sixth, and Cyril VI, I mean, and of course after him Pope Shenouda III. There has been a lot of getting along between both sects, and trying to get out of the Chalcedonian Convention into more understanding of the position of both churches. And the fact that Egypt has a strong community of 200,000 almost Catholics, Egyptian Catholics living here, and the Catholic Church has schools since 1854, and has as well orphanages, and has hospitals. All this work shows that there is a strong bond between both our governments, if we may use the expression, between Egypt and the Pope, the Holy See. Tell us about this, what unites us and what's put us on the right track.
And it's very important what you underline, the efforts done by Pope Kirill and Pope Shenouda we had an agreement in 1970 regarding, the origin of our divisions, which are from the 4th century. And beyond the century, beyond the division, yes, to see that, to see what is uniting and also trying to work together. The Christian community in Egypt, mostly Coptic Orthodox, is the most important, numerically, most important community of Christian in the Middle East. Yes, so it's very important, exactly, yes, also in the region.
And they are pure Egyptians, and this is what makes them very special, and they are very nationalistic.
That's
love
true,
their
because you see, and the immigration of Coptic Egyptian abroad is quite recent. For Egyptians normally didn't used to go abroad. Now it's a small tendency.
It's Muslims or Christians going abroad for economic reasons.
Exactly.
And Pope Shenouda III was so very much wise in sending priests with them, having clergy, and building the bridges between the Egyptian Coptic Orthodox in diaspora and the Egyptian
and
Church.
To maintain also the tradition and the culture.
Yes.
You were mentioning the Coptic Catholic Church, which was restated in 1895, is about around 200,000.
Yes.
And Catholics altogether in Egypt are 330,000.
Yes.
In 7 different rites, which is also a very specific situation.
Because there are some Syrian origins and of
Latin,
course Chaldeans
Syrian,
and Latins.
And some have been there for centuries.
Yes.
And it's not that they're not Egyptian, and they feel themselves Egyptian.
Of course, very much.
And seeing the Catholic Church was always insisting, we cannot speak of national church for us, because Catholics means universal.
Yes.
So we are of our origin, of our country, and proud of our culture. But at the same time, this you were mentioning, Doctor, something very important. We have here in Egypt 173 Catholic schools and colleges, which have been bringing such an important contribution to the civilization and to the culture and education in Egypt. Education is an important word. It's not only a matter of knowledge and things, it's education of the whole person.
Exactly.
And this, at the moment, represents more than 176,000 students. Our schools are not expensive schools. And the great majority, I would say, sometimes even 80%, but most of the time 60% of the students are Muslim.
Yes.
So it means it's a uniting power, a uniting concept of we are Egyptians, we are here educated as Egyptians, not only the matter of learning, it's a matter also of knowing each other. And this contributes in a unique way, all over Egypt, to knowing each other and making that we feel, first of all, Egyptians. Egyptians with our own faith, of course, but we know the others. They are not foreigners. They are not strangers.
Of course not.
And this is what is creating this unique atmosphere. I want to underline the real great role of these colleges and schools all over Egypt. Of course, you have foreign priests and nuns who are contributing for so many years now.
Of course.
And this gives also those who are going to that church, that schools and colleges, a capacity also of opening themselves to the world and be able to make present the Egyptian civilization and the culture and this culture of meeting, culture of welcoming, which is so important around the world.
Well, this makes them very special, and of course, a lot of them are French schools, but also there are English schools.
Exactly,
like, for example, St. George, the Coptic Orthodox Church, that's English, and there's, of course, Collège de Saint-Famille and Sacré-Cœur and
Brother La Salle and so many Franciscan schools all over
Yes, and a lot of Franciscan schools all over Egypt, actually, not just in Cairo, because a lot of them are situated in Upper Egypt, in the Delta and all over. This makes them special. And also, this was the agreement which was made, actually, between the Catholic Church in 1854 with Said Basha, when he accepted that they're coming here to serve and to help and to promote. And I think this is what's important. Now in the year 2026, these schools are here to stay and they are thriving, and there are a lot of dedicated priests and nuns who are helping in spreading the lantern of knowledge and information. Tell us also about, you have also place for hospitals and orphanage, and tell us about the special relation between the Catholic Church, the Vatican per se, and Egypt, beside, of course, in acceptance or agreement with the foreign points of view in the peace procedures in the whole of Middle East.
See, the first mission, I would say, of the Holy See was established in 1839, so a long time ago, in Alexandria with the Apostolic Vicariate, which at that time was including so many areas like Arabia and even Cyprus at the time. But in 1924, the mission went from Alexandria to Cairo, and the presidency, the building was built in 1927, so next year we'll be celebrating 100 years of our presence. In 1947, the Holy See started a diplomatic relation with the Kingdom of Egypt in 1940, so next year we'll be having 80 years. But beyond the diplomatic relation, the important fact that we are having this contact, direct contact with the government of Egypt. What is important is also the fact that as a mission here, we are underlining the necessity to have this contact, permanent contact with the Egyptian authorities, because Egypt is in the region a very important actor. Because of the very important Christian minority, because of the way Egyptians have been always welcoming all the others, and start from Muhammad Ali and all, even before, I mean, in the history for centuries and centuries. And this tradition is something which is so important in a world which is so divided. Having a country with the model of welcoming and integrating and respecting differences. With this idea, if we are all to build a country together, and we are not going to be divided along religious lines. We have to see what is uniting us. And building, I was saying, it's not only a matter of instruction in the schools and the colleges, it's a matter of education. Educate people to be together, and we know it's a difficult task. We know it's a long-run task, but it's important in the families. They have this kind of relation which is being built. And whatever meeting we have in a very discreet way, sometimes in an official way, is so important. My wish, I say, last year when I met Pope Leo XIV for the first time. I didn't know him before, whereas I knew well Pope Francis. And I presented myself, because all the nuncios of the world were gathering with him. And I said, I'm the nuncio in Egypt. And he said, I've never been there. I said, Holy Father, you're most welcome. So I think it's a wish of many who have already expressed it. Pope Tawadros, Grand Imam, and also the Catholic Church has expressed his will that the Pope would come to Egypt.
So we will be expecting a visit from his...
I think it's desirable, and
Yes.
I tell you, I will also convey to the Holy Father, whom I'll be meeting on the 28th of this month, in the private audience.
You have an open invitation from the President, right? More or less, right?
I think things are exactly
Going in the right
way,
direction.
and I think it's very important, especially in the present context, not only because it's Egypt, in the present context of so many tensions, you were mentioning just before tensions of civil war in Libya, in Sudan, in the Gulf, in Gaza, in Lebanon, all these tensions, and we are here in a country which strives to maintain as much as possible a climate of peace, because at the end, any kind of war is bringing disagreements and sufferings for the poorest. So whatever is being done to build and promote initiatives for peace in truth.
Yes. So definitely the Pope really appreciates the role of Egypt.
I think so.
In building,
I'm convinced.
in engraving the peace, and definitely the care for the impoverished, right?
Mm-hmm. That's why, you see, because all wars, all conflicts are bringing the worst on the poorest.
So definitely this is gives us a common task, Your Eminence, that is to ask the Pope to come to Egypt. And hopefully he visited, he had a very important visit. He started with Algiers.
Exactly.
And because, of course, they're a very important part of Algiers that has an important relation with the Catholic Church. And then the visit went on to Africa. And it was a very successful visit. And I believe that another visit to Egypt, where there has been the path of the Holy Family, which came here in refuge, like millions of people who came in refuge in Egypt all through the years, makes Egypt as a special place, definitely, that deserves a papal visit, right, sir?
I do agree. And you see, I would like also the Pope, who is he's a monk, originally is religious, and Egypt was the place of where a monastic life was born.
Yes, Antonius
Saint Antonio
and
Saint Paul.
Saint Paul and Antonius.
So important.
They were, Antonius was the one who introduced the monasterial system to the whole world. Paula always stayed in the Hermetic life, which makes him very special. And the role of Antonius as a monk was very important with Ignatius against Arius, the famous Nicaea Convention, makes Egypt as a sort of a birth of the true Christianity. Makes it very
monastic
special.
Life was born in Egypt.
Yes, monastic life.
Even St. Benedict took his
yes, and even the nuns started in Egypt.
Exactly.
And even the service monks or monasterial system by Pachomius was also an Egyptian trait. So this makes it a very special place.
And it's the nucleus of our Christian life. I mean, definitely. Having also prayer at the center, contemplation, and try to be in touch always more with God and to be better people.
Definitely. This is nothing better than saying that we have all to be better people. To end such a spiritual program with His Eminence and his the Archbishop, of course, to come to us, our program, and definitely really coming here, His Eminence Archbishop Nicolas, the ambassador of the Holy See in Egypt, or shall we say the Apostolic Nuncio, السفير البابوي بالقاهرة. Your Eminence, thank you very much for coming.
Thank you, Doctor.
It was a pleasure and honor. And please promise us to come back again.
With
and
pleasure.
Promise us that you will try your best to bring His Pope to such a cordial, great, welcome visit to Egypt.
Thank you, Doctor. God bless you and all your orders.
Yes. This was the World of Info. Today with the World of Info was Dr. Amr Mabrouk, and Dua Muhammad was at the control. And we'll come back the same time, same station. Stay always tuned to Radio Cairo.